Hello. So let's talk about the Epstein situation, which I wasn't going to comment on. You know, Trump's people should have known better than to, to raise an issue and keep raising an issue or get caught raising an issue that makes the president look bad or causes something. Because if the deputy FBI director had kept his mouth kept shooting his mouth off and then telling the press about it, which any normal president would have fired him for, except that there's a blackmail situation there where you fire the guy and then he speaks. So yeah, Trump is in a bad position, and it just got worse and worse the more anything was said. He shouldn't have commented at all, but he can't help himself. But it was still just an embarrassment that would have blown over. You know, now Trump's personal attorney, who's now the deputy attorney general, but still his personal attorney, met with Ghislaine Maxwell for 6 hours. I'd love to see that transcript. I'm sure there were several times when the recorder was stopped or there was no recorder. So the perception has to be that they were trying to get her story strength to obstruct justice. I'm sure the deputy AG says, he was just, asking questions. What he was doing was, seeing, okay, what do you have on Trump? And what's it going to take to get a pardon? What are you going to not say to get that pardon? Or here's what we want you to do. If you do it, you get that pardon or commutation or whatever. And everybody knows, they're saying, Maxwell's wants to be out of prison. Well, that's one thing Trump can give her in exchange for what? Well, there was six hours of witness prep. Yeah. So yeah, that's, as they say, it's sus. So, it gives the appearance of impropriety, whether there was any impropriety or not. It should not have been done. Pure and simple. And if the Deputy Attorney General knew anything about ethics in government, he would have known that. If his personal staff knew anything about ethics in government, they would have told him, don't do that. But Trump has surrounded himself with people who don't listen to professionalism. Again. So yeah, it's a mess, and it's getting messier by the day. If Johnson was trying to he was hoping that they would let the scandal go away by stopping any voting on the House. No, it's going to get worse now. Now they're going to investigate what happened today. In fact, I'm going to fire off a memo to the ranking minority leader, who's my congressman and was my personal lawyer at one time for a constitutional law issue until he became the dean of the Washington College of Law, or the acting dean. So, yeah, it's insane. It's totally insane. Suspicious. You don't put your personal lawyer in charge of the Defense Department, and then you don't put your personal lawyer. And if he would have put his old personal lawyer in charge of the Defense Department, or the Justice Department, rather, there wouldn't have been any convictions on the other stuff. You wouldn't have needed the second one if you'd have put the first one in a responsible position. So, which I'm sure Pence didn't let him do. I'm sure Trump wanted to, but Mike Pence tried so hard to keep Trump from making things that look bad. He just fueled up this administration by, Trump had a list of things that he wanted to do that Pence wouldn't let him do. And that, the chickens are now home to roost. And it created corruption, and, the corruption flows. So yeah, it's gone from pathetic to criminal. So, and there's probably no fire. And if there is, Trump's a convicted rapist. by civil, by the preponderance of evidence, not a reasonable doubt, but still, he's a adjudicated rapist, meaning he was adjudicated to have, more likely than not, raped Eugene Carroll. He's at least, he's culpable, and the jury recognized the fact that a rape did occur, and there was only two people in the room, and one of them was Donald Trump. So, do I just explain it? So, yeah, it's if they'd have let it go and let it in the ifs, but they kept defending where there was, it's like the Russia situation and the missiles, and that whole situation led to a peace deal by giving missiles to Ukraine. It brought Putin into the negotiating table, and they made a deal on Crimea, and that became not an issue until Putin thought, oh, I can go through and do this, and Biden won't stop it. Biden threw enough money at Ukraine that that wasn't gonna, that Putin had no ability to stop it. I mean, he attacked his weapons manufacturer. That's where Ukraine is, where they made the weapons for the Soviet Union, which is why he'd want it back. But he shouldn't have gotten back by attacking them. He hit the biggest guy rather. When he attacked Ukraine, he was punching above his weight. The Arthur Fonzarelli rule of fighting, you go and punch the biggest guy, and Ukraine was the bigger guy. And sometimes the bigger guy, holds you off, stops you, puts his head on you while you go, and eventually knocks you out. So yeah. And I guess he thought it was inevitable that Trump would become president again, and I'm sure. And there are allegations that there was some fixing in the election, and it wasn't from the Biden side. But Joe Biden doesn't believe in pursuing irregularities because that would be more divisive. Even though, it's easy to imagine that the right wing would lie and cheat, since they tend to do that. Also on the right-wing sin list, now that people are noticing videos on near-death experiences and saying that, God doesn't care, it's you that cares, and you have to face stuff, so that, no matter what happens after you die, you review your life, and then you feel sorry for it. God doesn't accuse you, you accuse yourself. But the whole fact that God doesn't accuse you when you die, and that you go to heaven anyway and are surrounded with His love regardless, and if there is a little hell episode, it's more purgatory, which it hangs around until you call out to God, and if you don't call out to God, then you're going to stay in purgatory for a while until you do. Most people do. Most people say, "I've had enough. Please help me." Just please help me. You don't have to even mention God if you die and you're like in a bad place, and you just ask for mercy, and mercy is given to you. Mercy shall be theirs. So blessed are they that mourn. Mercy shall be theirs. That includes the dead. So yeah. But the right wing is like lying about. They had to do a counter programming against that. Churches have to say, well, where does that leave the church? It's like, celebrate resurrection, celebrate. And by the resurrection, I mean the fact that souls do not lie dead in the dust, that they go to something better, that they go to the embrace of God, that they go with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's Abraham. Yes, or Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. So they could, because they weren't sinless by any means, but God put them in heaven, regardless of, they didn't get absolution for their sins, and Jesus said, that they are of the living rather than the dead, because he was a Pharisee. He believed in that stuff. And the organized church can't handle religion without fear, because people design the God that that reflects themselves. Just like Trump, he sees, he's suspicious, so he acts suspiciously, and he thinks everybody's out to get him. If he wasn't, he creates that world where everybody's out to get him, because he does things that are going to get him caught. If he just learned how to back off, nothing would have happened with Russia. Nothing would have happened, with the Ukraine thing. There wouldn't have been an insurrection, because he should have known that nobody was going to go after him. And when they did go after him, they did it badly. They attacked the paperwork rather than trying to link him to the actual violence, which was, if you're not going to link him to the violence, just leave him alone. And now they are, and they should still. They need to put him in the to conspiracy of the violent stuff, which I've laid out how to do that. But yeah, he keeps commenting. He makes it worse, and then he sends his personal attorney to talk to Ghislaine Matthews, and it's like, no, don't do that. That's insane. Again, it was inconvenient, and it would have blown over. Now it's a crime, or it gives the appearance of a crime, and that's just, I had to say something about that, because not doing so would have, my viewer or viewers, would have, wouldn't have well served if I had kept silent on this issue. So, yeah. Donald, if you just learn to shut up and not have your people, do the upend the hornet's nest. And maybe there were feelers ahead of time so that she said she would talk. That's all the more reason to say, no, you're trying to obstruct justice, don't. But now there's the appearance of obstruction of justice. So it's just normal Trump. It's Thursday. No. Basically. So yeah. Have a happy bad weather alert, and I will see you later.